Thank you, Ali. I wish my mother would be there when someone says something so nice about me, so she wouldn't be the only one. Anyway, what I'd like to do during the next, we have 45 minutes? Yeah, during the next... Since we don't have a large audience, if you have any questions, just stop me and I'll be as candid as possible. And but what I'd like to do during the next 45 minutes is to tell you a little bit what we think at Juniper, the future of telecom during the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years. The title of the talk is Telecom 2020 because it's a good marketing term, but anyone who can say in telecom what is going to happen in 2020 most likely is kind of fooling himself or herself. So my attempt today is mostly to share the boundaries of what is possible by 2020 and the impact of those things on both carriers and equipment providers. So I was expecting actually a little bit more students. So I was planning to talk about scenario planning. And scenario planning is a technique that I've used to shape up the Telecom 2020 framework. And I'm going to cover that briefly because I don't think there are many students in the room today. And the reason I want you to do that is because predicting the future is a science, and there are tools to do that. I'm not Jim Cramer who drinks something in the morning and then in the afternoon say that Bear Stearns is the best company ever. So when we say we predict the future, we use tools that have been developed a long time ago and that have been refined. So it's not futurology. It's not looking at a crystal ball. It's really a technique that is repeatable, predictable. It's a very strict discipline. Then I'll give you some number of where telecom is today. Actually, not today. It was last year. Last year I did a tour of the world and try to the pulse of operator and equipment provider around the world, and just so it's kind of a high-level summary of where we stand or where we stood last year. And I must confess, I did that. I started to do that in September 2008, and everything was hunky-dory. And within 3 weeks, if I had revisited some of the companies that I visited early September, they would have told me that it is the end of the world. So, but it is what it is. Then I'll talk about some uncertainties, talk about trends and impacts on the industry. So, if you have any questions, stop me. Okay? So, the technique that we've used to again define the Telecom 2020 framework is called scenario planning. It's something that has been invented in 94, 95, and that has been refined and used in many cases. So it has the way it works. It combines trends and uncertainties and define what we call future world. And those worlds are not the Jim Cramer's world, or they are real world, so they are attainable. So if you look at the upper right picture, the forces basically that shape the future of telecom are coming from different directions. The first direction is customer. And customer is what people do with their cell phone, what people do with their PC, with their television, and so on. Another force is technology. Technology is somewhat difficult to predict because while we can do derive some trend. Let's say we went from 10 megabits per second, 100 megabits per second, and then we went into the gig. The problem with technology when you try to predict the future is that there are discontinuity. And there are always companies coming up with Google, for example, the MapReduce, or company like Infinera, which is an optical company that has been able to put on a single chipset the componentry that usually requires an entire board. So you have disruption, so it's somewhat difficult, you have big discontinuity, so it's somewhat difficult to look at technology. The economy is also kind of a shaping feature of an industry. I am one of the few in my group that believe that the current economic downturn, for example, is just a blip. So over 10 years, we won't remember in a couple of years that we were in the worst recession since 1929 or whatever the pundits are saying. Another aspect today that is quite important is the environment, and it is epitomized by what we call green computing. Political and regulatory forces also have a very, very important influence on the telecom landscape. And here in the US, we live in some kind of a microcosm of lack of clear direction from the regulatory bodies. Around the world, in Asia, Japan, in Europe, we have regulatory bodies that are more proactive and have been able to define, for example, national broadband policies that have allowed better, more predictable investment by both carrier and equipment provider. New business model. I mean, nobody knew that a couple of years, 10 years ago now, that Google will basically change the entire equation of the internet and now also of telecom. The industry at large also have an implication. So what scenario planning basically does, it creates the cone that you see at the bottom right. No, it's okay. At the bottom right of the slide. So the origin of the cone is where we are today. And then we have forces that create basically directional trend. And let's say this is 2020, so we have a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown. And as we get closer to today, let's say 2015, we have less uncertainty. And defining what telecom will be 10 years from now, it's a recurrent exercise that actually at Juniper we do that every year in order to again to have a directional assessment of where we're going.
So the S1, S2, S3, and so on, they show basically uncertainties. I mean,
no. Those are directions. So this is basically influenced by the market. Okay, we have many unknown of the market. Here, this is technology. This is regulation.
Okay, I see.
So it's not really a cone. I don't know what is the name of the geographic body. So the way we've applied the model to define Telecom 2020 is presented on that slide. And so we take industry trend, and I'll give you some example of those trends. We take the industry uncertainties, and I will share with you all the uncertainties that not all, but some of them, and you'll see there's a very, very long list. Then we take also the technology trend, the discontinuity, and we feed that into a model that allows us to define what the ecosystem is. Okay? And the ecosystem includes type of player, but also the business model that will be used by those players. The two boxes that are shown on the right-hand side of the ecosystem are let's say, depict what a specific company will do to be able to adapt its strategy to that new ecosystem. So, and that system has been used by, I've used that system with service provider. For example, I've used that model with Shanghai Telecom 2 years ago. So if you can replace the Acme strategy by the Shanghai Telecom strategy. So the two additional steps is, with the new ecosystem, you look at what the competition does, what your competitors are going to do. Again, you're making an assumption in order to strive into that new ecosystem. And based on what your competitors are going to do and the ecosystem, you can come up with a strategy. So this model can be applied to telecom, but can be applied to many different areas. For example, the nice thing it allows you to not to be blinded. For example, IBM in the early 80s, if they had used such a model, they would not have missed the PC revolution. Or maybe 10 years ago, a company like Mattel, that was thriving by selling Barbies, they completely miss the Bratz fad that existed for a couple of years. If you have a daughter, she's 19, it was a little doll that were not Barbie-like at all. They were mean, and they were short, and they were fat, and it was really something that Mattel missed, actually. Similarly, another example of missed opportunity that could have been not missed is Lewis, for example, the gene company. It has been proven that if they had used such a method to come up with a feature, they would not have missed the designer genes era. And again, for them it was a large missed opportunity. So again, scenario planning is used. Give a couple of examples here, and actually all the examples that I give are relevant to telecom. So the industry is changing rapidly. In order to stay on top of what's going on, you have to spend a couple of hours per week just to read the press release, and because things are changing so quickly. If I go on vacation for a couple of weeks, I come back and company X has been acquired by company Z. The business model of the company has been turned around because another company came about, or a new breakthrough in optical, which doesn't happen so often in optical, but things are changing very quickly. Okay, so let me give you a few numbers about the size of telecom today. Okay, so the first slide shows the total spend per country, and the US are really just in terms of total spend is really dwarf all the other players. And after that, you have Japan and China. I think what is special in the US is that portion. Okay. It's pay TV. Pay TV, the Comcast, the Time Warner, the cable vision is really something that is very specific to the US. The cable industry has not been very successful outside the US. There are some pockets where you have a cable operator like in the UK or in the Netherlands and in Belgium, but otherwise the cable industry pretty much only exists in the US. What I show on the right side is basically the size of what I call the telecom wallet. It's basically what individuals spend per year on telecom services. And Canada is number one. And Canada is number one mostly because the cost of wireless over there is higher than in the US. But with cost parity, it will be actually at parity with Canada. And then you have Japan and the most advanced countries in Europe, or like Rumsfeld have said, all Europe. So this is another picture that actually I didn't do. It's the IMF who did the picture. It's somewhat interesting. But it shows where country. It shows the amount of investment of countries into telecom. And a couple of things that are interesting to look at. Number one is the US, we are behind here. In terms of investment per capita, we are behind the old Europe. And for anyone who has, Europe actually, also Asia, for anyone who has traveled outside the US, you know that mobile services, or you have a better diversity of handset in Europe than you have in the US.
And similarly, broadband access is much better in terms of bandwidth available in Europe than it is in the US, and let alone Japan. In Japan, it is common to have 100 megabits per second bidirectional fiber to the home, to each and every home or apartment, I would say, in Japan. It's even better actually in South Korea. Here we still pay, I don't know, $40 for a couple of megabits per second, while over there it's like for $40 you get 100 megabits per second bidirectional.
So what's the reason for that? Why is it like that we are a little bit behind? Is it because of the diversity? I mean, the United States being so large and so forth, or
because we don't spend enough money.
We
don't spend enough money. That's it.
There
are many excuses, and the excuse that is often advanced is the fact that the geography of the US is very different from the geography in Japan. Here, the density, the population density is just so much smaller than you have in Japan. Therefore, it is more expensive to dig trenches and to hang cable on pole. But I believe it is an excuse more than anything else. I do not believe that. Actually, I do not believe that the regulatory environment in the US favor investment in long-term projects. Okay. So the other thing that are important to look at, and you'll see a couple of in a few slides, is that while is that China and Brazil specifically are spending a lot of money in telecom infrastructure, and they are catching up. They are really behind, but they are catching up. And the other thing that is a little surprising is Russia. And actually, Russia, they're not spending much on, they have not spent much of the money they got out of the oil and the gas that they are producing. And I do believe that the lack of investment in infrastructure, not just in telecom infrastructure, but infrastructure in general, is creating the condition for a true recession in Russia, especially from the stock market standpoint. So the takeaway from those two slides is that the telecom market is a big market. We are talking just for the US almost $500 billion. But even so, it's a lot of money. Other countries outside the US have made more investment and are still investing at a faster pace than the US. And unfortunately, I don't see us catching up with the rest of the world. And actually, if you look at handset, we don't have any handset manufacturer in the US. Motorola tried to do something. We had a great idea with the Razr a couple of years ago, but then they milked the Razr to the nth degree until the point that they have become almost irrelevant today. Handset manufacturers are in Europe, like Nokia, and in Asia. And it's really a problem when you do not control the handset. So let's talk about uncertainties, and I'm not going to go through all the items here. But when you try to, when we sat down, and it's something that we do often, but I think it is okay. I think it is okay to know what you don't know, but it is not okay not to know what you don't know. So we have an exercise that we do almost every quarter, where we ask ourselves questions. We don't have the answer to those questions, but I think it's very important to understand those, or to be able to identify those degrees of uncertainties. So just to take a couple of examples. let's look at the first one under service provider business model and operation. So one question that, actually I have the answer, but usually in a room we have 5 different answers, or at least we have as many answers as we have individuals in the room. The first question is are over-the-top services going to displace service provider services? So let me tell you what over-the-top services is. Over-the-top services is Hulu, for example. Everybody's familiar with Hulu? Hulu is an aggregator of video. And so it has a web interface. And if you go on Hulu.com, you can watch any shows that have been produced in the last couple of years, and you can watch movies and things of that nature. So those type of services are really creating a big headache for cable companies that are used to make money by selling bandwidth to content providers on their cable infrastructure. So there's a lot of discussion in the industry, and I was with Time Warner 2 weeks ago, and they said, we don't know what to do. We don't know what to do. We are competing with Hulu for people's time, and we really don't know what's going to happen. Another example that is maybe more in terms of traffic dynamics is best effort sufficient? And so basically the internet has been built on a best effort model. And you send your packets through the wires, through the router, and you just hope that they are going to arrive as quickly as possible to their destination. So that stuff is, that model is, that method is great for web browsing. Actually, it's also pretty good for voice. And the reason it's good for voice is that we have so much, lost my voice. we have so much bandwidth that the 64 kilobits per second of voice is just really, it's almost irrelevant as it travels through the big router. But it is becoming an issue for video, because video is taking so much bandwidth and it is so sensitive to delay that it is not clear that the current internet can support high quality video. Another example, if you look at end user, actually, you can look at that. In terms of economy and geography, and called wildcard, and my colleagues forced me to put that over there, is what will happen to Telecom 2020, or what will be the state of Telecom if the economy lingers in recession for 5 years? It has an impact for sure. I believe it is not going to happen, but again, people believe it is going to happen, and the jury is still out for that. And then you have a lot of things about regulation. Regulation is really very, very important. So is the issue of what we've called here in the US is net neutrality. Net neutrality is basically, actually it's a misnomer, but basically net neutrality is the fact that all the bits in the network are transferred irregardless of who originated those bits or where they are destined for. And so the term actually came about when the CEO of AT&T said, I'm sick and tired to build routers to carry Google's traffic. And then you had media and the FCC looking at that. There's another thing that is quite important in the rest of the world. It's called open access, or let's call that unbundling. And basically, it is an operator outside the US. If it has a twisted pair, so a twisted pair is a cable that goes from network location to your home, or a twisted pair. So an operator has to provide access to competitor for that twisted pair. And in 1996 in the US, unbundling was required by the Telecom Act. But then under Chairman Powell and then Chairman Kendall Martin, the chairman of the FCC, those things disappear, and basically the Verizon, the AT&T, and the Quest were able to go back to be basically a monopoly to some extent. So again, as we shape as we try to shape get an idea of what telecom will be in 2020, we have all those uncertainties. So let's look at trends. Oh, okay, so I have a problem with those slides because I told the admin that I will be talking to a university, so I said, pick my slides. And when she picked my slides, she put a lot of animation, so I really have a problem with the animation. But let's try to put all the animation. So, I don't like any. Ali, you know that. I don't like animation. No animation inside. Okay, you know that. I used to work with Ali, and I was a little picky about animation. But and actually the text here is usually what I tell operator, and operator are I say old guys, as old as I am, and while they are managing a network, they don't really know what people are doing with their network, and they still believe that a black rotary phone is the bread and butter of their business. But if we project ourselves in the future, and when we try to see how people are going to use the network, we have to understand that today's teenagers are actually tomorrow's parents, leaders, workers, and we have to understand how they've been using the network. And there are three key facts here. The first one is voice is mobile. Very few people are going to use a traditional landline to give a phone call. The phone call will originate from a mobile phone. And not just phone call, but also SMS. The other thing is that during the course of the day, people will be touching the network from different devices. On an MP3 player, on a game machine, at work. So you'll have not only one broadband termination, but you'll have a couple of broadband termination. And as you go through your days, you'll be touching those broadband termination. And the third aspect is there's a lot of creation, sharing, and posting of content on the internet. And that stuff is just creating an entire new industry, and that industry is called data center. Just to give you an idea, I had a meeting with Google last week, and we talk about their data center, and I never use Google as an example, because Google is so special. So what Google asks, nobody else is going to ask, because they have need to scale that are just beyond belief. So for example, we say, okay, we can build a switch for you that will support a lot of 10 gigabit interface. How many do you need? About 1 million. Okay. And it is true, actually. It is true. If you look at their data center, it is dramatic. Just the guy told me that every minute, 13 hours of new video is uploaded on YouTube. Often that video is uploaded once and never watched, but still, just imagine the number of server, of router that you need. And actually, we have announced that Google is, for Juniper, our biggest customer, because they are buying a lot of router for their data centers. And it's just
okay. You said 13 hours?
13 hours every minute. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, Google is just buying routers. They don't buy switches, because Google doesn't believe in switch, okay? They believe everything should be layer 3, okay? So they don't buy switches, they buy routers. And they buy a lot of those, okay? A warehouse of Juniper, actually, we happen to be lucky at Juniper that they decided to choose Juniper, but in their warehouses of router that have yet to be installed. Okay? But this is one thing. Okay. So when we look at the way telecom will be used in 2020, we have to look at how 20-something are using today the internet. Okay? And even if I'm not 20, even if I'm no longer 20, I do Twitter. Okay? So when I go to a conference, instead of writing minutes of the conference or I take notes, I just Twitter, and it gets somewhere, and then it creates my trip report. Okay? So I'm trying to eat my own dog food. Okay, and I put some number that you can use it. So saying that, I don't know, just for example, the Google Nugget is always nice to tell those stories during cocktail parties. Okay, so the other trend is that exaflood happened. Okay, I don't remember how many 10 to the power whatever exaflood is, but the internet traffic is growing. It is. We see no sign of slowing down. Okay, there's some guys in Minnesota saying that he's claiming that he's going to slow down, but it is not. It is growing. It is growing as fast as we can build routers and install them. And actually, even during those difficult economic times, it is still growing fast. And yeah, it's still like that. Okay. So let's go through the animation. Okay. So let's look at the first one. Again, the growth is mostly, I would say, driven by video. Okay. The YouTube, the Facebook, there are many video sites. And just to give you a number, I think the most popular YouTube video was downloaded or watched 88 million times by June 08. And I think it's the Dance Revolution thing. I think it is this one. Oh, if Dance Revolution is not that one, it's the second one. I don't know if you watch it, it's very funny. You need to go online a little bit more, guys. Okay, the other thing is that everybody is touching the internet. Everybody is touching the network. Okay, there are almost the niches of people who do not use the internet is really shrinking dramatically. Okay, so you see the statistic. As I said, video has a dramatic impact on the network. And if YouTube video are a problem by their number, the real problem for the internet is HD video. So high definition video in MPEG-2 requires, let's say, between 10 and 15 megabits per second. So the amount of bandwidth that you need to stream a movie, again, you cannot compare that with what you need for a web page. Okay? And it is really putting a lot of stress on the network. And I don't have the graph here, but if we look at the growth of video, if today the internet, what we have is we have mostly small packets. And actually everything is built for small packets. Our routers are built for small packets in terms of buffer and in terms of management of all. But as video is taking a bigger chunk of the traffic, now we're going to see different types of packet units for router. So this is an early sign that tells router vendor maybe we should build the router differently in terms of our ASICs or our buffer, the way we manage that. And actually, Google has been talking about building their own router to support YouTube. But they always build their own thing. Google is not really it's nice to mention it, but it's really a special company. Another thing that we see happening in the next couple of years, and I think the completion of those trends will be by horizon of 2020, is that the internet is really becoming the central vehicle way to deliver services. And all kinds of services are now delivered over the net. So, for example, Blue Type is an email and collaboration tool. So you don't need to have people that manage their own email server, Outlook or Netscape or whatever server you are using. It is now done in big data center and managed by outside company. We have a workstream, which is an HR management tool. Again, many companies today have tools from Oracle for example, to manage HR, and now just those things will be outsourced for data center. You have Salesforce.com, which is a Salesforce management tool. Intact, I can't remember what Intact is. But basically, the idea is that having software that you buy and put that on your machines will be soon a thing of the past. And someone was mentioning, I think it's you were mentioning Google. They have a tool what tool did you mention that replaced the Yahoo briefcase? You mentioned a tool, Google as an office tool online.
Google Documents.
Yeah, Google Documents. Okay. So this is one example. Okay. Actually, yes, I remember. Actually, Intact is a publishing tool. So today, instead of going to Adobe and buying you have also that you install on your PC now. You'll be able to use them, and they will be managed by outside company and be located in data center. So that trend actually has major implication on the network, because now every time you access something, you have to go somewhere in a network. The other thing that has a big implication is that you have now the emergence of those data centers. So you have what I call mega consolidation. So you have some part of the network that have to manage a disproportionate amount of traffic, because everything is going through those data centers. For example, Google has can I give example of Google? I think they have 6 or 7 data centers in the US. And all the traffic is going through those things, and usually they are in location where electricity is cheap, and actually it's mostly, if it's cold, it's better actually also. Even so, Google has a special way to run the data center.
What does that stand for? SaaS?
Oh, software as a service. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Another trend, and it's it's been happening today, but I think the formalization would be, let's say, the second part of the, after 2015 or so, is the dominance of Asia. The big investment, the large number of people that remains to be connected to the network are in Asia, both in India, in Indonesia, and obviously in China. And this is really why there's so many companies that are, in telecom companies that are just kind of going up there and creating centers and attempting to understand the way to do business in those countries. And it's somewhat different from other countries. But in terms of CapEx, so CapEx is capital expenditure, we expect to see a disproportionate amount of the CapEx being done in Asia. So those, oh yes, you know the trend. Okay. So let me go through all the animation and that. Another trend is what we call the wireless era. And the most important thing about wireless is mobility. Okay? So it's a fact that basically you can access the network anywhere. It's not a bandwidth really, so it's really mobility. And what is the impact of wireless is mostly driven by the fact that by 2050 we'll have about 10 wireless devices per home. Okay, so we have 10 wireless connection for one wireline connection. Okay. And that trend is really creating, again, special requirement on the network. Okay? So, and you have and wireless has been always more driven by disruption. And so it's very difficult to predict what is going to happen because, I mean, someone, for example, let's use Google again. Google now on the iPhone is creating 75% of the data traffic on the AT&T network. So there's always, you can have someone in his garage, something like that, come up with an application that sells that to Apple and goes on the iPhone, and soon we'll have interfaces that will allow application developer to have the same stuff running on the tree from Palm or BlackBerry. So someone coming up with an application, and that application is creating a lot of traffic on the network. It's very difficult to predict that.
So the prediction you say is 91 then?
Yeah. One thing also that so it's a debate in the industry, but I am in one of the camp actually. Das phone. So it's a debate in the industry, but I am in one of the camp actually. We have seen phone attempting to do a lot of things. Okay, so BlackBerry does phone, I read email. People imagine devices where you can watch video. You can do micropayment. In Asia, it is popular to use your phone as your credit card. So we've seen the phone having more and more features. I think we've reached the limit of that. It's my opinion. Other people have different opinion. I think that we are going to see more devices now that have a dedicated function. Because I believe that the phone does not have the right user interface to meet the need of all kinds of applications. And for example, the Kindle from Amazon is an example. If you want to have an electronic reader, doing that on the phone is not very convenient. Okay? And there are many other applications that you can imagine that you will have a single-purpose mobile device. Okay? There's one thing I need to mention here, is something called WiMAX. I don't know if you follow the wireless industry, but basically the wireless industry has been in a race to provide more bandwidth. Okay? And today, let's say the traditional next step, or the natural next step for the Verizon and the AT&T, the T-Mobile, the Etisalat, is to go to a technology that is called LTE. There's a technology that has been developed by the IEEE called WiMAX. That is, to some extent, the equivalent of Wi-Fi for wide area network. And that technology, on paper at least, presents the possibility to displace in some area broadband wireline. And there's a company called Clearwire that is offering WiMAX as a replacement actually for your ADSL or for your cable service. I'm not big on WiMAX, but again, there's some people in the industry that believe that WiMAX will play a role. I think it will play a role in some developing countries that do not have wire infrastructure, and where the tele density does not mandate the need to add a wire infrastructure. But let's say the ether will never have the same bandwidth capacity than a nice 75-ohm coax or fiber. Okay.
In fact, that prediction that you had 9-to-1 ratio of moving to home, I thought that that cannot really happen unless we have the WiMAX, because you know, you really need, for a lot of these applications, you need to have you know, high bandwidth, and the Wi-Fi with the reach of it and so forth, and bandwidth we cannot handle.
So I didn't want to talk about too much about technology, but to some extent, the wireless industry has reached the limit of Shannon and Nyquist. Okay, so and today if we look at the ability to transport a certain number of bits per hertz per second is it's basically at 7. Okay, and whether you use WiMAX or another technology, I mean the spectrum is there, and Nyquist and Shannon are meet the blocking factor. So other techniques can be used to increase the bandwidth available. So and that do not mandate WiMAX. So things like MIMO, obviously another way to, MIMO is multiple input, multiple output. It's another way to do vectorization. Or you can create more sector around your base station. Usually, if you have wireless, let's say, if you do that really in a very dumb way, you transmit your signal, and basically everybody in a certain circle can reach that signal. So there are ways to create sector. So instead of having an entire circle, you have some slices. And there are new techniques today to have smaller slices, to have slices with different power. So you can reach that ratio easily. You don't need WiMAX actually. You don't need WiMAX. No, you don't need WiMAX.
Because mobility really, as soon as you talk about mobility, directivity, you know, would be, you shouldn't talk about directivity. You want to go anywhere you want. Yeah. So if you are driving the car, you know, you can be anywhere, and that would mean that you need to have a wide area, you know, in color. So anyway.
Okay, so I've covered the uncertainties, the trend, and so I'm going to go briefly about the impact. Okay, so oh gosh, I get all the things print now. Okay, I'm going to have to go to some of the animation. No, actually, it's not like animation. Gosh, anyway. So what are we going to see, and what will be the impact on the network? So the first thing is what I call the grand exodus. Okay. So basically, there's a major globalization of the workforce and centralization of data centers. Okay. So and it is happening today to some extent. For example, I have a group of people, and some are in Japan, some are in Europe, and we really work as a team, even so we are completely distributed. Actually, I've never seen two of the Japanese guys that work for me, but it's okay. And it's a trend that we're going to see more and more as time passes by. Okay. And again, to do that, the network has to offer obviously high bandwidth. You need the issue of telepresence and all those two. Okay. So let me go briefly through another impact. So another impact is that there's a blurring of work life and personal life. And so you need to be able to have the same tools whether you are at work or at home. And again, this has implications on the network. So I really would like to finish on time, so I'm going to do it late. Another trend, and another impact of those trends is that we call the fragmented corporation. And so basically what is happening is that companies are really, by 2020, will really completely outsource everything that is not their core competency. Okay? There's no reason whatsoever, like a company like Juniper, that we manage in-house our mail. We don't do that. It's not our business. We build a router. We do ASICs. It makes no sense whatsoever for I don't know, General Motors to have a system that manage their HR, even so a lot of people, maybe not by 2020, but so all that stuff is really going to be outsourced, special locations, mostly big data center. Again, the impact on the network is dramatic.
Online education is in our area. Online education can be going and more and more popular.
Another impact on businesses is that today what is used is mostly voice and data, but video is really coming. And actually, one of the little long-term impact of the current economic crisis is the fact that our travel budget has been curtailed dramatically. And in order to continue to operate, we use more and more video conferences. And I believe that when the economy can recover and we can travel again, we will have kept those good habits of having a video conference call versus traveling to go to Boston for a couple of hours of meetings. Those things are going to disappear, and I think we keep the good habits.
So you have a copy of the slide, so you can look at the, I don't want to cover that. Another thing is the
follow me. So basically, the location of the worker or the application is completely irrelevant. Okay? You have ubiquity of services, ubiquity of worker. And there's something that is kind of funny. Today, sometimes we say, oh, it's nice to work in the Silicon Valley because you can telecommute. But it really doesn't make sense to live in Palo Alto and to telecommute to your office that is in Sunnyvale. No, what we're going to be able to do is, okay, I want to live in Wyoming and work for a company in Sunnyvale. And again, that demand of the business will have as dramatic impact again on the network.
So, sorry for the animation, a lot of animation. Let's go through that one.
There's something that is a little bit more troublesome for the telecom industry. And it's the issue of revenue versus capital expenditure as well as operational expenditure. So, and it's really, we don't have a solution yet, and it's, so we're working on it. But basically what you see here is over time, the revenue has grown. I put here the growth for mobile only, it's about 11% growth. Okay, so it's a decent growth. The problem is the traffic has simply exploded, especially when data became dominant. And it is applicable both to wireline and wireless operators. So now we need to transmit more and more bits, and the revenue is growing slowly. And I am of the camp that believe that the elasticity of the telecom wallet has reached potentially a limit today. So we can grab a couple more dollars per month per user, but we're not going to be able to go much further. So there's a gap here. And it is really difficult to address that gap. So in a company like Juniper or Cisco, they say, oh, buy more routers. But it just doesn't work because it's just too expensive. And so there's a lot of research that is done, mostly around optical transmission. So today, most of, even if you have optical interface, you always go through some kind of an electrical conversion. The idea that you could transmit bits by staying completely in the optical domain is one that we don't like at Juniper, or Cisco doesn't really like, but operator really would like to see. It's a very, very difficult problem. So, just model with an apple pie statement. So there are other impacts, and briefly, what I believe, or what we believe, is we're going to see more consolidation. We already had mega consolidation in the US, where AT&T now is what almost it used to be 20 years ago and 30 years ago, 25 years ago when Judge Green split AT&T. So we've seen a lot of consolidation in the US. Even in China, we start to see a lot of consolidation. There are many operators in China, but we start to see consolidation. For those who are not familiar with China, it's when the Communist Party is deciding everything in Beijing. Actually, they believe they decide everything in Beijing. The province, the cities, one of the counties have a lot of power, and you have a lot of small operators over there. But it is we see some consolidation. Orange is a new name for France Telecom. In France, they used to have almost three operators. One that will do wireline residential, enterprise, and mobile. And now it is under a single roof. Same thing happened in Canada. In the US, we may, so those are question mark. Comcast, for example, which is a cable, I'm sure you've heard of Comcast, a cable company, but it could potentially combine or merge with Clearwire. Clearwire is a wireless operator. Or in Japan, where also you have a fragmented market, you could have NTT, which is a wireline operator, merge with its wireless sister company, Docomo. So you're going to see more consolidation. And here I only put the consolidation from an operator standpoint, but you can also see a lot of consolidation with equipment provider. And I would say only the big one, the one that have a very healthy balance sheet, are going to survive. And I would say that maybe a short-term impact of the current credit market is that some of the medium-sized equipment provider may disappear. Again, just assume 1 second I'm not with Juniper. I believe, for example, a company like Telecom are really going to have a difficulty to survive in the long term, being what they are today with their size and their ability to compete against the monster of Huawei. Huawei is a Chinese company, or the Cisco, or the network, the Nokia Siemens. Okay, so we're going to see also consolidation with the operator, equipment provider. In terms of partnering, again, a lot of partnering that is happening today, but is going to continue. And so partnering between media company and service provider. You will see, for example, Yahoo partner with SBC. Now they are completely in agreement and they are departing ways. But in Europe, you have a lot of partnering between operator and media company. Another thing that is that has to happen in order for companies to kind of survive in the long run is what I call network sharing. Network sharing is a different form of open access. So basically, it's not very popular in the US, but it's very popular in the rest of the world. For example, in Spain, Vodafone, which is the largest mobile operator in the world, is partnering with O2. And what they partner on is they are sharing wireless infrastructure. So they don't need to go and build so many base stations and then acquire so much spectrum. They can share that facility and then share the revenue. And it allows operators to really provide ubiquity of service and to have a ramp up in terms of coverage much faster. Now, it's not losing the mark, but while everything is changing, by 2020, we still expect the service provider, in terms of their revenue, to be much larger than the Google, the Yahoo, or the content owner. we often say that content is king, but we haven't seen any indication that within the next 10 years, let's say the revenue of a Google or a Yahoo or a Facebook will be of the same size of a Verizon, AT&T, Vodafone, or this is simply something that we've not seen in the US. In the US, I mean, if you go to Japan, maybe not downtown Tokyo, and you look at, I like wires, okay? So you go in Japan and you look at the pole, and you see going into a single hole 2 coax cable